So today we'll start from where we had left yesterday. We were doing a program, this program. We were doing this program and here we had discussed about how to declare a class and how to define the contents within the class. How to declare a class, how to define the contents within the class. We had discussed the access specifiers, private access specifiers, public access specifier. We had come across different terms like data members, member function. Data members and member functions are known as properties of a class. These are the members of the class ABC. Anything outside the class is non-member of the class. This main function is outside of the class. And how to instantiate the object. We had learned how to instantiate an object of a class. A class can have multiple objects. Each object has its own copy of data members and member functions. And if a particular object wants to call a function, then how we can call the function? By using the object name, dot operator, and the function name. Okay, so this was clear to you. These terms are clear to you. These terms are clear to you. Now, let us go back to theory. Now we will see the theory, what's written in the theory. We were doing idea behind object oriented programming, or else we'll start with object oriented programming. We'll read it. Object oriented programming solves some of the, okay, one more thing I want to tell you. We had related these creation of objects with the real world entities, like for example we had discussed about classification of animals, or there is a class fruits, a class mango, banana, apples are the objects of class fruits. So as you can see, if fruit is a class and mango, banana and apple are the objects of a class, but these objects are somewhat similar also, and somewhat they have different features also. Like what I'm trying to say is apple and mango have seeds. Apple and mango have seeds, but banana do not have a seed, but banana is a fruit. That means each object has its own data members, you can say. Each object has its own data members. They are not dependent on each other, they are independent and they maintain an internal state. Okay, so now we'll go back to theory. Object-oriented programming solves some of the problems, the problems which we faced in unstructured programming, procedural, modular. So object-oriented is better version of programming approach. So solve some of the, in contrast to the other techniques, the techniques which we had discussed, unstructured, procedural, modular, we now have a web of interacting objects. Now in object-oriented programming, we have web, net of interacting objects, or group of objects we can say. Now you can relate to the C++ object-oriented programming. We had seen how to instantiate an object. An object has its own copy of data members and member functions. The objects can interact to each other by using the function. The function, okay? So we now have web of interacting objects, each house keeping its own state. I had told you that objects are not dependent, they are independent. They have their own internal state. Okay, so if now you'll relate this sentence with what we have discussed in the example, it will be easy for you to understand. So each object house keeps its own state. Objects of the program interact by sending messages to each other. Two objects interact to each other by sending messages through what? Functions. They can communicate to each other through functions. Member functions, you know? That's what. It is most advanced approach and offers many advantages over approaches just mentioned above. This unstructured, procedural and modular. So let's see the idea behind object-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming is most modern way of organizing program. Here the emphasis is given on the way programs are designed. Here emphasis are given on the way programs are designed. How the programs are designed? The program is designed around objects. Objects play major role in object-oriented programming. So in particular, OOP programs are organized around objects. Everything is revolving around objects. Whatever we are doing in the program is for the object. We are creating a data member of a class. We are creating a member function of a class. All for what? For the objects. So OOP programs are organized around objects which contain both data and functions that act on the data. So objects contain both data and functions. Now you can relate what is data and what is function. The object contains both data and functions that act on the given data. We have seen the example how it can affect a data member. Fine. The idea is that when a programmer is given a new problem in object-oriented programming, the idea is that when a program is given a new problem, the decomposition process that initially takes place is in terms of objects found in the problem. So if the problem is given to you, if you want to if you want to calculate the area of a triangle, so the problem, we decompose it in terms of objects. So the decomposition process initially takes place in terms of objects because we have told you the programming is around objects. These objects can be classified into different groupings called classes. A simple C++ program can have multiple classes. We have seen an example in which we had declared and defined only one class. But in C++ program, a program can have multiple classes that we will be seeing that example in further topics. Just keep in mind, a program can have multiple classes. So if a program can have multiple classes, then each class have its own objects. So that's what here it is telling. These objects can be classified into different groupings. Here different groupings are classes. Group means classes. The objects are classified into different classes, you can say. And these classes can then be analyzed to determine the properties held by the objects of the class. I had told you what are the properties. Data members and member functions are the properties of a class. So of course, if an object of a particular class is instantiated, or another term for instantiation is created, then each object will have its own copy of the properties. The properties are data members and member functions. So these classes can then be analyzed to determine the properties held by objects of the class with the help. If I have a class and if that class has an object, then objects of course will have access to the data members and member functions of the class. Of course, the actions objects of the class are capable of performing. Actions means functions. Functions. Function helps us to determine the actions. Functions tells the program what it's going to perform. Is it going to print something, or it is going to do some addition or some multiplication, like that. Actions. So the actions objects of the class are capable of performing. And the relationships between classes, this we haven't discussed yet. This will come across when we will do inheritance. There is a concept in object oriented programming that determines the relationship between two classes. So this we will come across when we will do inheritance. Just keep in mind these classes are analyzed to determine the properties held by objects, the actions objects of the class are capable of performing, and the relationship between classes. Okay. So one example which I had told you is mentioned in the your book is the classification of animal. That's what is written here. One strong example of this is biology, where the complexity of life around us has been studied extensively in terms of classifying life forms into various groups. So this I don't have to tell you. Using the object oriented terms. When we are using the object oriented terms such as class and instance. Class, you know, by now you know what is a class. And I had told you that object of a class are also known as instance of a class. I had mentioned while explaining the example. So here class and instance means class and object. So in object oriented term, the object oriented terms are class and instance. A species can be seen as a class and an individual member of the species as an instance or object of the class. The object-oriented design allows us to think about the actual real-world entities of the problem we are attempting to provide a solution for. Hence, instances refer to objects. Yeah, I've told you objects are also known as instances, and class provides a template for number of objects. What is a template? Template is a format. For example, what is a template? The example which I can give you is, for example, you want to write an application to the principal for allowing to pay the fee in installments. So in some colleges, what happens? Offices will give you a template, a already formed letter where there will be blanks in the format. Name of the student, class of the student, division of a student, sign of a student. There will be blanks. So what you'll have to do in that template, the letter is already formed, only where your information is needed there will be a blank. I dash of Chandraban Sharma College, something like that. And the template is already given to you, only you have to enter your details. Now it's clear what is template. The format is already given to you, you only have to fill in your details and submit the application. Or sometimes you have come across
Is a
there.
class, right?
Sorry.
Template is a class, right? The class is the template
Yeah, I was telling you the
for the
meaning of
object.
I was telling you the meaning of template. Sometimes you are given, sometimes you might have filled the form and in last there is a declaration. I dash hereby declare that the above details given are all valid and accurate. Any discrepancy to this, my form will be rejected. As something like this, the declaration is given. So there is space blank wherein you'll have to give your name. So that's a template. The format is already given to you. Only few of the details of your information you have to fill in. So a class act as a template. The structure is already given to you. You only have to fill in your details. So that's what. Class provides a template for number of objects. Is that clear to you? Class is a template for an object. Yeah, and one more thing I wanted to tell you in this program. Can you see here it is private? It is private, right? The data member of class ABC is private. This variable data is private to class ABC. And I had told you that anything which is outside the class cannot access the data members and member functions of a class until and unless it is defined as public. So this object can access the public members of the class ABC, but the outside function, anything outside the class, cannot access the private members of class ABC, because this is private, of course. So this function shouldn't be able to access this data. So let us check if it's possible or not. This was the original program. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to access this member. See, if I had to access this member function of a class, if I had to access the member function of a class, how we had access? Object name, dot operator, and function name. Similarly, if I want to access this data member, how I'm going to access? Object name dot data, and I want to assign some value to this variable, which is 5, for example. Okay, now let us run this program in C++. Let us do that. Let's see what happens. This program, if I'll run, let us see what happens. To make the screen full, what you will have to do, you'll click in the screen and press Alt Enter. This will be full screen for you. There were changes which we had to make. I will erase this. And I was trying to access the private data member of class AB from the main function, which is outside the class. So let us see what happens. Obj.data, and the value which I had assigned was 5 and semicolon. I'll save it, compile it. See, there is an error. Data is not accessible. I had told you that anything outside the class cannot access the members of class ABC until and unless it is the access specifier used as public. If access specifier used as private, that means that member is not accessible from outside of the class. Is this clear? I'm able to access get data from outside the class. Okay, I will put it into comments. I'll put this statement into comments. Comments to you know na. It's is used only for the programmer's purpose. So I'll compile it. Error will go away. There is no error. Okay, so I'm able to access get data. Why? Because it is public. That's why I'm able to access this from outside the class obj.getData. But I was not able to access the data member, which is the variable data, because it is private to the class ABC. So the concept of private and public clear to you? So one thing I want to tell you is, but when I was executing this obj.getData, so this member function is accessible. This member function is accessible. So the output for this was, see, I will put this into, or I'll just erase it. The output for this was, I hope you remember what I had told you. When this object is calling get data, that means the output is enter number, data was 10. You can give any value to the data C in. The number entered is 10. This is the expected output. right? So if you say, yeah, data is private member of class, so how am I able to access data from here? This is private, no? This is private. So how I'm able to access from this statement? How? Because because I am accessing this data member through this member function of class ABC. So this statement is not able to directly access this data. The, the object is able to access data indirectly through the member function of the data. I'm not directly accessing this. This object is not directly accessing this data member. I'm able to access it through the member functions. So this concept is known as data hiding in C++. This concept is known as data hiding in C++. Not even in C++, in object-oriented programming, this concept is known as data hiding. Okay, so let us go back to, there is very common question for principles of object-oriented programming. So there are four principles of object-oriented programming. One is data hiding, second is polymorphism, encapsulation, and inheritance. So you have to keep this in mind. The four principles of object-oriented programming are data hiding, encapsulation, polymorphism, and inheritance. So these three terms we will learn in further topics. Okay, so one of the thing I have explained you, what is data hiding. Data hiding, I hope it's clear to you what is data hiding. Okay, so now let's discuss benefits of OOP. What are the benefits of OOP, object oriented programming? OOP approach has lot many advantages over other programming approaches. Here are some of them listed below. So some of the benefits are, OOP treats data as an important element in the program development and doesn't allow to be accessible by any user. So now this statement clear to you. If I'll declare the data as private, then anything outside the class cannot access the data member of a class. So OOP treats data as an important element. If by chance accidentally the user changes the data, so your integrity will be lost, the correctness of data will be lost. So to avoid that, to prevent that, we declare the data members as private. So OOP treats data as an important element in the program development and doesn't allow to be accessible by any user. Okay, thus it protects data from accidental modification from outside world. This is achieved through data hiding. So data hiding is clear to you. What is data hiding? Second, OOP allows us to decompose a complex problem into number of entities called objects. So a problem is decomposed into number of objects. Okay, and then build data and functions. Here it's talking about data members and member functions. So and then build data and functions around these entities. Of course, the data members and member functions are built around the object. In object oriented programming, the program is organized around objects. Here different objects may communicate with each other through functions. Okay, thus object orientation gives us the solution of many problems associated with development. Software complexity can be easily managed because the problem is decomposed into objects, so the complexity of the uh, program can be easily managed. Third, so first was what? OOP treats data as an important element. Second is data hiding. Sorry, in first, data hiding. In second, complexity of the program can be easily managed. How? Because of the objects. Third is encapsulation. Using encapsulation. See, encapsulation, what is encapsulation? As you can see, the data members and the member functions are encapsulated together in a class. The data members and member functions are encapsulated. Encapsulated means enclosed in a structured capsule, encapsulated. They all are encapsulated together. All the data members and member functions are together in a class. That is what? Using encapsulation. Fine. So using encapsulation, it is easier to view the actual data and associated function, allowing us to get more details of a model. Okay. Encapsulation is collection of data and functions together. Fourth is inheritance. Inheritance. This term is very common in English term or in biology. Inheritance means we inherit something from our ancestors. So if we talk about in terms of OOPS, inheritance means a class can, for example, there are two classes in a program, class 1 and class 2. Class 2 can inherit the properties of class 1. I told you what are the properties. Data members and member functions are the properties of a class. So class 2 can inherit all the properties of class 1 or some of the properties of class 1. Now is this clear to you, the term inheritance? So inheritance provides us software reusability. If I want to use the data members and member functions of class 1 in class 2, then again I'll not have to write the entire data, declare and define the data members and member functions again in class 2. What I'll just do, I'll just inherit the properties of class 1 in class 2. So by this, we can have program reusability. We'll reuse the program. I'll not have to code it again. It will save time. Code saving and extending use of existing classes. I'm able to use the existing classes. I'll not have to write everything again. I'm reusing it. Now fifth is through polymorphism. Polymorphism, this term you have come across while we were doing C++ in 11th standard also. Polymorphism means which can take multiple forms. We had learned function overloading. Function overloading means functions having the same name but different parameters. So that we will learn in detail, of course. Function overloading we had done in 11th. So if you want me to repeat, just tell me, I'll repeat it. Okay? Function overloading. Through polymorphism, same thing can be implemented in slightly different manner, providing more flexibility in the design. What is function overloading? I'll tell you. Here's the header file we'll have to declare. Can anyone tell me the thing which I'm writing here, double area, in brackets int, what does that mean?
I'm not sure.
Yes, it's function.
Double data.
Function prototype you're talking about?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yes, it's a function prototype. Why we require function prototype? Why we require function prototype?
The
to
function.
When I am
come to know
declaring,
the data type of the parameter.
mm, is it when I declare a function other than main function? When I am declaring a function other than main function in a program, I require a prototype for that function. Did
Yes,
you
ma'am.
get it? I'll explain it. Wait, let me first finish typing this. So this is the program.
आपने कोनो dot html.
So this is the program to calculate the area of circle and rectangle using overloaded function area. So this program is going to calculate the area of a circle and area of a rectangle using the concept of function overloading. So this is the program. In this program, as you can see, this is the main program. This is the main program, as you can see here. This is the main program. Okay, and other than main, this is the main function. Sorry, other than main function, we have this function. This function. The function name is area. The function name is area, and the return type of this function area is double, because the value this function is going to return is in decimals. Data types we had learned in 11th. This is very important topic for 12th also, because sometimes questions based on this topic are asked in the exam. So some of the topics from 11th are asked in 12th also. So I'll tell you few of the topics which have more chances of being asked from 11th. Okay, so data type is one of the topic which is very important, which can be asked in 12th paper. So this is a function whose return type is double, because this function is going to return a value which will be in decimals. That's why the data type used is double. So area is the function name, and in brackets, as you can see, we have parameters. Variables, we have variable r whose data type is int. Okay, this is one function. The second function, can you see, this is the second function other than main function. The name of this function is also area. The name of this function is also area. Okay, but can you see the parameters? The parameters are different. Here parameter is L and B. Here the parameter was R. So what is function overloading? The functions having the same name but different number of parameters or different parameters. Now it is clear to you what is function overloading. What is function overloading? The function overloading is when the functions having the same name, here the functions are having the same name, but they have different parameters. So we'll discuss this program in next lecture. So for today we are going to stop here. Okay.